Welcome to the Peep Show podcast.
News and stories from the sex industry.
With Jesse and PJ Sage. Welcome back to another episode of the Peep Show podcast. This week we bring you a montage of the speakers at the International Whores Day Digital Rally, New York City, and we interview the Incredible Edible Akynos from the Black Sex Worker Collective, who talks to us about activism to empower Black sex workers.
As we just said, the episode today is about sex worker activism. One way you can support sex workers is by being sure to pay for your porn.
And in the spirit of Pride Month, why not take this opportunity to support a trans-owned and operated queer porn collective? Trouble Films offers a wealth of different kinds of porn and erotica. We love it, and we know you will too. Go visit them and check out their films on troublefilms.com or on sites like pinklabel.tv or Hot Movies.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Peep Show podcast.
Welcome.
So today we have an episode on sex worker activism.
Yeah, so many powerful voices that we are really looking forward to being able to share with you.
Absolutely. But first, we probably should give you a bit of an update.
Yeah, we have been so busy here at Peep Show Media.
We have been really working to polish the site up, and we've been pumping out some writing and lining up a bunch of contributors who are going to be sharing their own writing on the site with you.
Peep Show Media is expanding beyond just the two of us, which is really exciting. And we're going to have more specific news for you, but we are working on setting up a fund for sex working writers and artists and people to contribute to.
Oh, you just gave them an exclusive scoop.
Ooh, I did, for people to contribute to this site, and it's already started. So we're really excited. We will have more specific information, but we are...
Not just people, but sex working writers.
Yeah, well, I think I already said that, but...
Oh.
We have been expanding beyond the podcast to create more of a multimedia news site, and that's starting to take shape, and it's really exciting to see that happen.
Mm-hmm. So if you haven't checked it out already, or you haven't checked it out recently, peepshowmedia.com.
Mm-hmm. And check out our store, too, because we have hoodies.
And that's one of the best ways you can support us is through buying our merch. And the hoodies are really cool.
We have other things, too, but that's our new item. And it seems like people are stoked about the hoodies, so you should go check those out.
So our first segment comes from International Whores Day.
Yeah, the digital rally in New York City. So a couple of weeks ago, we had on Mr. Sybil, who talked about this event when it was still upcoming. But now that it is finished, what PJ and I did is we pulled out some of the highlights from the talks that were given at the digital rally and created a little montage so you can get a flavor of what that digital rally was like, and also we'll link to the event itself. So if you want to watch it in full, you can do that as well.
Okay, so here it is.
The first IWD started on the streets of France in 1975 as a protest against the police state, and it continues as a protest against the oppressive systems that assault our lives. It is a very hard time to be on the streets right now, as our health is threatened, our bodies surveilled. And yet we must take to the streets in solidarity to protest the Black lives that are murdered again and again. We take to the streets because we are being banned from online spaces, or because we never had the privilege of that access in the first place. We take to the streets to feed migrant workers who can't access government checks. We take to the streets because we have mouths to feed and rent to pay. But today, my fellow warrior whores, we acknowledge your courage by asking you to join from the privacy and safety of your shelter.
IWD was created in response to the state violence and failure of the police to protect sex workers. But sex workers, more than anything, are people, many of whom are Black and brown and minorities in general. The privilege we have to all be here sharing space virtually, while so many of us are out on the front lines fighting, protesting not only the unlawful and inhumane death of George Floyd, an unarmed Black man murdered by Minneapolis police, but also the less publicized slayings of Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old Louisville EMT murdered by police in her home, and Tony McDade, an unarmed Black trans man murdered by police in Tallahassee, as well as Nina Pop, and the countless deaths that all of our communities have suffered due to COVID-19. Like, legitimately, we're still in the midst of a pandemic.
I come to you today angry and frustrated about the trauma that the Black and brown transgender individual is facing.
Life has always been hard for transgender female of color.
Siempre nos olvidan a lo último, nos ponen en lo último y no nos toman en cuenta. Entonces, tenemos que estar más unidas para poder lograr algo y que se nos tome en cuenta que nosotros somos seres humanos, nosotros respiramos, nosotros comemos, nosotros pagamos renta.
We have to band together at the moment so that the governor and other officials realize that we need help at this time because there is no work. We have very limited resources. And unfortunately, sex workers are always left to pick up the pieces at the very end. We are the forgotten population. We are the last ones on the totem pole.
Y'all will never understand our struggles out here. These past 4 years have been so hard for me, and I try my hardest to help every woman, especially Black women. I have lost so many people because of the stigma that we face.
The police state is perhaps the single most dangerous factor in Asian and Asian American sex workers' lives. And this is a time for collective struggle. And I'm urging the AAPI community to resist together.
It's clear that there is no sex worker justice without racial justice, without TGNC justice, without disability justice. It's clear that when we call for an end to criminalization of sex work, we must understand that what we are calling for is an end to the criminalization of Blackness, the criminalization of poverty, the criminalization of gender nonconformity, the criminalization of immigration, the criminalization of being trans. We must continue this work with the rage and humor of the whores who have not survived, in service to the whores who are our cohort, and in service to the whores who are yet to come.
Sexual freedom and sexual liberation can never truly exist within white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. We must ask who has the privilege to be sexually free, to be sexually liberated. And the sex workers movement has the power to destigmatize sexuality in this country and around the world, but only if we eradicate white supremacy, both internally in our organizations, ourselves, our movement, and externally.
So, hablando un poquito sobre violencia que viven las mujeres trans en Queens, es demasiado. Desde el 2016 hasta la fecha hemos tenido más de 26 casos violentos donde las mujeres trans son violentadas con botellas, cadenas, martillos. De hecho, yo soy sobreviviente de un crimen de odio donde me echaron pepper spray por simplemente estar grabando un video y vestida sexy.
Unfortunately, in Queens, the violence that transgender women have been subjected to for the past few years is unbelievable. I myself was the victim of a hate crime when someone sprayed pepper spray in my face because I was recording a video. Between 2016 and 2020, there have been 26 cases of hate crimes in Queens, where people of different sexual orientation, specifically transgender women, have been hit by bottles, by hammers, by chains. This needs to stop.
We were supposed to be rallying together, clutching our red umbrellas, holding each other, sweating in the city sunlight, perched atop our pleasers. And we say we are still together. We are a digital scream, a virtual chant. We are thousands of red images defiantly circulating in an online world that would really rather silence us.
We're now in the midst of a global pandemic and mass uprisings in defense of Black lives. And we have an opportunity to dramatically transform the way that we live, work, and relate to each other. Now there's massive public support for defunding the NYPD. Many of us have been calling for divestment from policing and investment in our communities for a long time. now people are listening in a new way, and we have to harness that energy that folks have to defund the police and to dismantle the carceral state and to build safety for all of our communities.
Black lives matter. Black trans lives matter. Black incarcerated people matter. And Black sex workers matter. We believe we must say fuck prisons because our friends and comrades are caged, and they have taught us to know and feel the horror of incarceration. We have listened to and learned from so many Black feminists, and through their work, writing, and care, have raised our horizon line of imagination of addressing harm beyond carceral punishment. We believe we must say fuck the police because, as comrades of critical resistance have reminded us, instances of police killings, violence, and targeting of Black people and people of color are not instances of bad policing or policing gone wrong. They are the manifestations of policing itself. And we also believe sex workers have vital insight to share about building a world of safety and support outside of the state, outside of reliance on cops and courts, because those systems were set up to fail Black people, cash poor people, drug-using people, sex trading people. So let us work toward building a world without those violent systems.
I don't understand how is it that cisgendered people have to speak on our behalf on situations that we should be front and foremost fighting. Exactly. There should be no this person or that person talking about our fight. The fight that we deal with day in and day out. It should make no sense that everything that's going on now, that's our everyday life as a Black trans individual. This is nothing new to us. If anything, this is making us more scared to go outside and more scared to pull any kind of sex work, because what if that's the killer that's in disguise, because now he can kill us?
How many trans identified individuals was murdered this year alone? I'm personally tired. I'm tired.
As a mother of a Black male, I'm terrified for my son to go outside. I'm terrified to let my son see TV because of everything that's going on. I can't explain to him why a white man killed a Black man. I can't explain to him why we are 90 years past what happened to Black Wall Street and still going through the same shit. Like, I can't explain none of that to him. I can't explain how the white people say they want to help us, they want to support us, but all they do is say Black power. Y'all not out there shielding us.
What's Black power?
If y'all want to help us shield us from the white man that's trying to shoot us.
We need to do better as a whole, not just everybody outside of us, but us individually, societally. We need to do better as a whole. We need to protect our Black and brown people. We need to protect our trans folks, our trans sisters and brothers. We need to do better. This shit is killing us left and right. We need to do better. And we cannot be the ones that are perpetuating harm and killing our own.
De igual manera que nuestra comunidad afroamericana ha sido pisoteada y humillada por muchos años, de la misma manera la comunidad trans del mundo ha sido discriminada. Y soy eje de esta situación, ya que en estos primeros 4 meses del 2020, mi comunidad trans puertorriqueña ha sufrido 5 asesinatos de la comunidad trans por transfobia.
And the same way that the African-American community has been trampled upon recently, I would also like to mention that the transgender Puerto Rican community here in New York has also been the victim of this. In the first 4 months of this year, as it is, 20 people have been victims to transgender killings in New York.
Y en este día tan importante para la comunidad sexoservidora, le gritamos al mundo que el trabajo sexual es un trabajo y que solo yo puedo tomar la determinación de qué hacer con mi cuerpo.
And on this very important day where we celebrate sexual workers, I would like sex workers, I would like to echo the fact that our work is important and that we make the decision to do this work. And it is important. It is a job. It is a job worthy of respect.
While we cannot understand, we are here to listen and to uplift Black voices, Black trans voices, Black trans sex working voices. And as a mixed race First Nations and Romani person whose family and life has been irrevocably affected by racially biased policing and brutality through generations, I stand with you as an accomplice to this necessary demonstration for restoration, reparation, and an end to violently enforced white supremacy.
We embrace our differences and know that our greatest asset is, in fact, how different we all are. We honor all the varying perspectives and stories of our siblings and community members and do what we can to make sure that we can all work together to lift each other up. No one knows more than sex workers that when institutional care fails, we are there to pick up the slack and to provide care and compassion to others.
We are living through protests and riots through COVID-19. And so I think that it is really important to understand the axis of racism, misogyny, transmisogyny, and queerphobia through both capitalism and the medical industrial complex. As many of you know, during the AIDS epidemic, it was our folks who not only had to fight the government to get recognized for what the epidemic was, it was us, it was sex workers, it was queer sex workers who provided care for each other, who provided those harm reduction tools on the ground for each other. And this legacy has been following us through these times, this legacy of providing care through prisons and through incarceration, providing care for our folks who are houseless, who are people who use drugs. When we are talking about the decriminalization of sex work, we are talking about it through state-sanctioned violence on Black bodies, on trans bodies, on disabled bodies, on houseless bodies. But we are also talking about it through state-sanctioned violence of the medical industrial complex.
I had an entirely different speech prepared, but currently Philly is under siege and the Black neighborhoods are being targeted. They're shooting rubber bullets and tear gas. And we had come together to raise money for mutual aid specifically to help our Black sex workers in the community, our Black trans sex workers, queer sex workers, unhoused, street-based, drug-using sex workers, which you may not know, Philly has a huge population. And we were successful in raising money, but we still need more. It's like an endless well. With the pandemic continuing and with violence continuing, with people getting tear gassed here, it's getting very violent, very scary.
Y una vez más, pues también enfrentamos al sistema y le decimos que en estos momentos de crisis es cuando vemos toda la situación sistemática, toda esta situación de opresión que estamos viviendo las trabajadoras y trabajadores sexuales. Hay muchos miembros de nuestras comunidades que están en una crisis total, económicamente, emocionalmente, y desde el colectivo estamos haciendo un trabajo articulado, un trabajo de base comunitaria, pero también exigimos al Estado de Nueva York, exigimos al alcalde, al gobernador y a todos los políticos que se acuerden que las voces trans y las voces de las personas que hacen trabajo sexual son importantes y tienen que ser incluidas en la agenda política del Estado de Nueva York.
I would like to mention the fact that we are going through a very trying time at the moment, and we are facing the system. We are calling out this system. We are calling upon the mayor, the politicians, the governor here in New York. We demand that we be part of the political agenda in the state as we look towards the oppression that we're currently facing. And here at the Colectivo, we are doing all sorts of organizing. We are working with other grassroots organizations, and we are also doing our own grassroots to spearhead this movement so that we can represent all of the sex workers, all of the transgender people here specifically in Queens.
Que tenemos que comenzar a hacer nuestros eventos, nuestra abogacía por nuestros derechos, seguir manteniendo la resistencia y la lucha, porque ahora estamos viviendo una situación crítica, donde se nos sigue dejando de lado y se nos sigue criminalizando.
And one very important thing that I'd like to underscore is that we need to change this friendly or kind discourse that we currently use or employ. We need to tell people what we really feel. We need to advocate for all the trans, Latin, gender, and sex workers that we have here in Queens, New York. We have to face these politicians and demand our rights. We count, and it's very important that we advocate for ourselves as well, so that we can come out of this crisis stronger.
And I speak on behalf of a lot of hoes, ratchet hoes, kind hoes, smart hoes, dumb hoes, ho hoes. I am that bitch to actually call people in, not out. I've witnessed some really nasty stuff going on within the organizing world. We have to find a way to do this shit better. So here's a little education on doing right. Shut the fuck up. If you have nothing good to say to a sex worker, pay them. Pay them. I like $1 cash app all sex workers. But we're having such a problem organizing with each other. We made it this bitch because she's white. We made it this one because she's Chinese. I am Caribbean, Trinidadian, Japanese. I'm a clusterfuck of a lot of shit. I don't really give a fuck what anybody's race is. We're sex workers. We are some of everything. And our brothers, our trans brothers that are in sex work, we need to find a way to lift them up and really help them, because we miss out on telling this story about our brothers. We just lost one to a senseless death. I just want y'all to take this day, celebrate with your sisters from somewhere and your brothers from somewhere, love each other, hug each other, fuck each other, do what you need to do to make this day last. This is a landmark moment. International Whores Day 2020. That's it. That's all I got to say. I love you. Happy International Whores Day. Bye, bitches.
You have heard, in order of appearance, Yen Q from Red Canary Song and Kink Out, host Ashley Paige, T.S. Candii and Liz Ferman from Black Trans News, Yulianna and Bianey Garcia from Make the Road New York, Gizelle Marie from New York City Stripper Strike, Ester K from Red Canary Song, Lorelei Lee from Hacking Hustling, RJ Thompson from the Sex Worker Project at the Urban Justice League, Red from Support Host Collective, Leila Raven from DecrimNY, Aneesha Andrews and Alisha King from SWOP Brooklyn, Jennifer from Organización Latina Trans New York, Farrah Lord and Molly Simmons from SWOP Brooklyn, Rainey Beejum and Eve from the Philadelphia Red Umbrella Alliance, Colectivo Intercultural Transgiudendo, and Cayenne Dorshow from Glitz.
You can find the full video at internationalwhoresday.com. Up next, we have the Incredible Edible Akynos. This episode of the Peep Show podcast is sponsored by Quick and Dirty Media.
Are you an independent content creator, webcam model, or clip maker? Quick and Dirty Media can help you with your video editing and production needs at a reasonable price, allowing you to devote more time to creating your content. As a special offer for Peep Show podcast listeners, the first 5 content creators who submit a video for editing will receive their first order free. Make sure to use the promo code PeepShowPod. Find Quick and Dirty Media on Twitter at QuickDirtyMedia or send an email to info@quickanddirtymedia.com. Quick and Dirty Media is proud to be an adult-friendly business. Today we have the Incredible Edible Akynos with us from the Black Sex Workers Collective. Her tagline, The Beast of Burlesque, was given to her by performer friend Voodoo Onyx. She's a New York-raised stripper who's been featured in nude magazines, music videos, and adult websites since she was 17. She's also a leadership and program developer, organizer, and a member of several different sex worker-run organizations where she's lobbied in New York State against condoms as evidence and helped make recommendations on human rights policies at the UN. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. There's a loudmouth brat outside interrupting my moment in time. Whose fucking kid is that? Sorry. It's usually very quiet, and all of a sudden some kid is like, oh, she's getting her moment of shine. Let me fuck it up.
That's not your kid. It's somebody else's kid.
It's somebody else's kid, because it was my kid. Trust me. Trust me.
I thought it was cute. But...
I'm glad you think so, because I'm very annoyed by this noise in my ear right now. But just kidding. Not really.
So I love the name, the Incredible Edible Akynos. How did you start going by that?
I like food.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I like food, and it rhymed, and I wanted something very extravagant for when hosts were like introducing me. So I was like, what could be good here?
Yeah.
And I came up with that.
That's great. So we were having a conversation a little bit ago about pronouns, and can you tell us what pronouns you actually prefer?
Oh, yeah. Well, because I hate pronouns, I hate it. I started out of frustration, you know, when people were asking me, I just be like, oh my God, my pronoun is whore. Just like leave me the fuck alone. It's whore. That's it. And if you want to keep it clean, just call me King, because that's what I am.
I love that. I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out how to work that into the bio, but I wanted to make sure you just said it. Yeah, so so thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on today. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, my work is all about Blackness, Black pride, my Black history, Black dance, the entire Black diaspora, trying to uplift Black community as well as sex workers, because there's so many people out there that work in this industry to some capacity, even if they think they're not whores, especially the housewives who think they're not whores. They're the best whores ever. So everyone is a whore. That's what my work is really about, and trying to kind of talk about the intersectionality of what it means to be that, as well as making sure that we understand that Black people are a part of this history, and you know that we can't just like forget that.
Yeah, so you're part of the Black Sex Workers Collective. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I started it in 2018 as a response to the SESTA FOSTA bill that got passed. I knew that already there was so much limited resources and spaces for Black sex workers to begin with in New York or anywhere really. And when that bill passed, when that bill went into law, is that how it works, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, shit, gotta make sure I got it right. When that bill went into law, I was like, oh shit, we're really gonna be in trouble now, and what are we gonna do?
Right.
So I had this idea for brewing for a while, and then there's a couple of times I had a couple of false starts, but at that moment I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I have to do it now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was born.
Yeah, it seems like that was a moment in sex worker communities where there was a lot of collective organizing.
Solidarity.
And solidarity.
So can you talk a little bit more about the mission of the Black Sex Workers Collective?
So we are a philanthropist arts organization, and what that really means is that in order to get our message out, we use a lot of different forms of art activism. So we use different mediums. It could be digital media, visual art, sound, anything, really anything can happen. And we come together to help on legislation, to make recommendations to, governments if necessary, and also to collect money that we give back to the community. So that's like the short version of it all. And trying to create spaces for sex worker voices, Black sex worker, Black and trans sex worker voices to be uplifted. And we just talk about the intersectionality of the work, which is a lot.
Yeah, that makes your organization kind of unique in the sense that it pushes forward art as the way of making money and of fundraising for the community, right?
Yeah, art is everywhere. It's everything, and there's so many different artists that make up the coalition of people that we work with, and just how we, try to give the message to the public. Lots of artistic mediums working in there, so it's the best way. You can't do. There's not much you can do or accomplish in this world without some form of art.
Yeah.
Even an artist had to create the computers and the cell phones that we're on. So yeah, art is our way.
Yeah.
So do you have any particular projects in the pipeline, either with the Black Sex Workers Collective or with your own work?
Well, there's so many projects right now. There's so many like legislative things that we're working on with some of our coalitions, like with Desiree Alliance and with Best Practices Policy Project, and trying to get to Geneva to go to make recommendations for the Universal Periodic Review. So we're working in those like legal kind of standpoints, trying to get governments to change their goddamn attitudes towards sex workers, immigrants, trans people, women, et cetera, But in the immediate future, the thing that we've got coming is our 22-hour-long fundraiser, which is happening on my goddamn birthday, because I'm the only person that's born on that day, in case you didn't know.
So what's your birthday?
My birthday is July 22nd, and we're going to do a 22-hour fundraiser, global fundraiser, where different people, different groups, artists, all kind of creative people are going to just come together and like just do a continuous stream of just different presentations, from round tables to virtual galleries, films. There's all kinds of things that are happening. We're still even finishing up the schedule, but it's a 22-hour long thing, and it's in all different time zones, so there's no excuse. And tickets start at $22.
Oh, nice.
And we're trying to raise $43,000 so we can give one-time stipends to mainly the U.S. sex workers that are really being affected by what's happening right now, because the U.S. in particular is really, they've left a lot of people out of the conversation when it comes to being able to get financial relief.
Right.
And it doesn't stop in the U.S. It's happening in India. It's happening in Africa, and it's really messed up. You know, it's like the name of the event is called "Who's Allowed to Make Money," and that's a whole deeper conversation about just how people steal from sex workers, how they act like we have nothing to do with the way that society is built and society is sustained. No one really cares about us once they know you're a hoe, and especially if you're a black hoe, they're like, oh, we don't give a fuck about them bitches.
Right.
And we can just starve to death for as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now, because sex workers, all sex workers are being impacted by COVID, obviously. But then on top of that, we now have protests all around the world against like police brutality against Black people. So Black sex workers are sitting at the intersection of those
heavily policed populations.
Yeah, this COVID thing, it's really interesting how they've kind of spin that to be something else, and they're actually, what they're doing, because I'm in Germany right now.
Okay.
So what's happening in Germany is that it's sex work is legal here in Germany.
Right.
But because of the COVID, now they've like tightened up the restrictions on it and are now trying to make it illegal for the sex workers to go back to work. And the argument is that sex workers, obviously, that they're not saying this, but we are vectors of disease.
Right.
So obviously, if anyone's going to catch COVID, if they go see a sex worker, they're obviously going to catch COVID, because only sex workers could potentially have this shit.
Right.
And the irony, the hypocrisy in that is that a lot of the businesses that are being allowed to remain open are things like nail salons and barbershops and hair salons, where you come in contact with people in the same kind of way without obviously the semen and stuff.
Right.
But we all know that that's not how COVID is passed, right? It is not a sexually transmitted infection or sexually transmitted disease. You can kind of catch it in numerous amount of ways. But while these other businesses are able to operate, they're like, yeah, but those vectors of diseases over there, they're probably going to spread it to someone. So now we're just going to try to shut that down and not allow you to go back to work. And the police here, more police violence, they're also setting up the trans workers primarily, posing as fake clients to go see these people and then give them like 500 euro fines.
Wow.
So then to flip it on its heels, they're like, nah, let's leave the sex workers alone. Let's just fuck with their clients. So now clients can get fined if they try to go see workers, right? So it's just some real fucked up shit. Now they're trying to go back, and Germany's sort of progressive in the way that it behaves, but now they're just like, you know what, no, we're just gonna go on this fuck shit, and we're gonna fuck with the hoes, because we really don't want people to make money that way. We just want them to suck dick for free. Because, you're supposed to suck dick for free. You're not supposed to get paid for it.
Right.
Who does that? Only bitches like Julia Roberts and Maggie Gyllenhaal. They can go on TV and they can suck all the dick or fake suck dick, and they can make millions of dollars. But the people that are doing it in real life, no, bitch, you can't do that.
Right.
So do I know Black workers that are still working? Absolutely. I don't know what the cops are over there really doing, though, if they're like doing the same kind of setup, but I really wouldn't be surprised. But, they love to mess with communities at the margins, because we're like low hanging fruit. So I'm kind of, the collective, we're trying to be prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared for what they're all the potential setups that are going to come with trying to work during this pandemic and now this uprising, because people, even though they should be busy with the riots or with the protests, they're probably going to find time to go fuck with some hoe trying to make some money. So to try and combat that, we just want to try to raise this money so we can, it's not going to be large unless Jeff Bezos brings his ass on and give me my $5 million. Unless he does his fucking job and give me my $5 million. I'm trying to put that in the universe so hard. Unless he comes and I can just, I can give people larger stipends. We're just trying to support them so they don't have to put themselves in that position, because it's already criminalized in the US anyway.
Right.
And now that the cops are salty that they're about to just get all dismantled, they're probably out there trying to fuck with people. I'm trying to work on other things, and because I'm central in here now I'm hearing more about what's happening in Germany, but it's all fucked up everywhere. And that's the bottom line. Even in Africa, even in India, they're doing the same shit. They're like, oh, bitch, you were sucking dick and now you're out of work. I'm sorry, you can't get any medicine.
Right.
You're a sex worker. Why should we help you? So
or any of the relief funds that everybody else is getting. And I think that that's something that does need to be highlighted.
Not even when they were working as legal sex workers. They're just like, I'm hearing about the applications being very discriminatory in their language. And, I feel like there needs to be some legal ramifications for that, because if people are actually working even in legal parts of the industry and you're still discriminating against them, I don't even understand how that's able to happen, but that's how much they hate women.
Right.
Not that women are the only ones in this industry, but that's the reason why these barriers are created.
And like you said, women who are profiting off of sexuality, because women are supposed to provide sexual services for men for free.
Yeah, of course. Give it to him for free. He's going to disrespect you later, but you should fuck him anyway.
Right. Now is a good time to hit the pause button and head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/peepshowpodcast. Even $1 a month shows us that you care and want to see Peep Show continue to thrive. Also, you can help increase our reach with a review on iTunes.
You would think if their goal was to keep people socially distant, or rather than criminalizing sex work and paying cops to do all these stings, they could just come up with some money to support sex workers while they're asking them to not do their job.
Stop to not work.
Right.
Well, they could really just take the money from the cops, because they're actually paying cops to be sex workers. They're paying cops literally to have the right to go ahead and have sex with the workers or get services from these workers while they're on the clock. So how about you just defund that whole shit and just run my money? We can just even this out. We can just be easy peasy. I'll stop working if you provide me some financial security. Stop giving it to the cops to come into our workspace.
Right.
And you're paying them sometimes 6 figures to come and get services for us while they're using these taxpayer dollars and criminalizing us at the same time.
Beyond contributing to the fundraiser on July 22nd, what do you think that white sex workers can do and people outside the sex work community to support Black sex workers who are being disproportionately impacted by both COVID and policing issues in general?
It's the same thing as racism. I always try to tell people that if you're trying to understand sexism, because that's really what it is, sexism and misogyny, you have to understand racism, because it's the same exact thing. Everything about it is the same.
Right.
What can you do? First step, don't be a racist dick.
Yeah.
Don't be a misogynist dick. Don't be it's all the same thing. Secondly, speak up. There's so many opportunities for you to speak up and be a part of legislation, just changing the rules all around, One of the most important ways is that I would love is if we could stop speaking about sex work like it's some kind of alien form of labor that's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's a big part of change, and people who are of privilege, especially the ones who don't really engage in this labor, could really do good with educating themselves a little bit more, because this is not they love to call it the world's oldest profession. Well, if it is, why the hell are we still having this conversation?
Right.
You don't know that people do this. People do this. It's the world's oldest profession. So then about it. So just It's not alien.
Yeah.
Sucking dick is not that, I mean, well, I was going to say it's not that hard, but it really depends. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's sex.
Yeah.
It's sex. It's like, it's just sex. So can we stop talking about it like it's so strange? And can we also, because sex workers have so many different skills, we're never just sex workers, right?
Right.
We have so many different skills, so much different training, just across the board, endless talent and education. And I think it's really important for the general population, the general society, to make space for us to be in the most unconventional of spaces. So there should be no reason why some person that just stuck their head in a book for 5 years should be teaching about sex education and not a sex worker.
I absolutely agree with that.
You know, sex workers know how to do administrative work as well. Like, not because, you know, this was because we spun around on a pole doesn't mean that we don't know how to type up a document. You know, like we have so many different skill sets that we should be able to, we should be allowed to go into these other spaces without being discriminated against if our current employer finds out that we once engaged in sex work of any kind.
Yeah, and that's the ironic thing I think that most sex workers deal with is that, you know, there's all this pressure to leave sex work or not be in it. But the fact that we did sex work of any kind also pushes us out of conventional employment. So
yeah, because they really don't want women to work. They just don't. Doesn't matter what they'll come up with any reason not to give us work. And it's kind of the same thing when you think about racism, you know? Way too many books on racism and sexism, but there's many ways to just change your mindset and we're just normal people. We're just doing a job.
Right.
And you know, if you don't agree with it, just don't do it.
It's really simple, right?
Don't do it.
In regards to sex work and sexism and racism, one of the things that people who are in positions of power can do to unmantle these like systems is really simple. They can like hire sex workers and Black people and women to do jobs.
Don't be discriminatory. Don't be a bigot. I mean, like, it's so weird to me that people, and these are all people that came from sex, right? Because obviously if two other people didn't come together and have sex, really and truly, none of these people would be here, right?
Right.
But these people that also have sex, but because they don't get paid for it, they somehow think that the ones who do are somehow less, which is bizarre.
It is. It's like a strange way in which sex is overvalued. It's a way of like thinking about the way that there's like sanctioned ways to have sex and not sanctioned ways to have sex. And despite the fact that everyone has sex and has come from sex, it's like yes, but these, like all the whores, they're doing something much worse than what we're doing, which doesn't make any sense. They're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. They're doing the exact same thing. They're just getting paid.
Right.
And you're just getting fucked. So it's like
yeah, that is like a weird paradox or something. It's like we like overvalue sex but undervalue sex work.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're willing to allow other people to do it. Like, you know, our $1 million entertainers, they can make bank off of our backs all day.
Yeah.
But no one cares. But we'll idolize them. But the people that are actually doing the work that they are imitating, oh no. That's bad.
Right.
That's bad.
Is there anything else you want to cover?
They can just go to the bswc.org website and see what's going on there. We've got a lot of information on there. I just did the June newsletter. We're like busting out merchandise. So if people want to buy merch as well, we've got a lot of new graphics.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So that's a way to also help with funds, right? Is to buy merchandise.
Yeah. Buy some merch. We've got the GoFundMe up there as well. If people just want to give and they're like, I don't want to watch these stupid little events. They can just donate to the general fundraiser. We've got the merch is just so awesome. I'm really excited about that. So we've got them as add-ons to the ticket on the Eventbrite page.
Oh, nice.
And we're also creating another store with I think Teespring. So like once the event is over and if people still want to buy merch, it will be available in our Teespring store, which will be up soon. So, you know, those are the things that we're working on. We're just trying to have money because, you know, sex worker-led spaces don't really get a lot of funding. They give them to everyone else because obviously everything is more important than sex work, even though You can't really go many places and there not be a sex worker in the room. You just don't know it.
Right.
This is why the anti-sex work movement is so dominant in the culture. It's because they have a lot of money, not because they're more skilled, not because they're even telling the truth, but definitely because they're actually piggybacking off the sex worker movement, and they've hijacked our movement and twisted around to be something that's, you know, more appeasing to the public appetite, because the only ways that people can really accept that women or trans people or anyone that engages in sex work, but primarily women, the only way that the public wants to accept that we can have sex is if we're either married or if we're getting raped.
Yeah.
Right. So the anti-sex work movement knows this, and they make a lot, millions of dollars off the backs of sex workers. And meanwhile, we cannot get any funding. So it's hard for us to be able to have billboards and advertisements all over the world to push our narrative forward. So we've got to, as grassroots movements, we've got to constantly trying to come up with new schemes and new ways to bring awareness and to also raise money. So we're just trying to get folks to like come to these events, learn something new. It's not just about sex work. This event is about labor. This event is actually about a new way of seeing labor, because there's a lot of industries that somehow think they're separate from the sex worker rights movement. Or the sex worker rights movement is always having to be like kind of just in its own bubble. But in reality, it's all about housing. It's all about access to healthcare. It's all about who is allowed to work and who's allowed to make money, who's allowed to file those taxes.
Yeah.
You know, who's allowed to be able to raise their children. And a lot of workers go through this. A lot of low-wage workers go through this. So this is not just a sex worker event. So there's going to be a lot of stuff there about Blackness, about sex work, and about labor in general. So I hope people will buy up all them tickets. Jeff Bezos, get this out to that motherfucker, because you know what? I'm sick of his shit. He's way too fucking rich and way too snobby. And I'm trying to put it into the universe, but I am not sure she's listening. I need that motherfucker to give me $5 million.
I don't think that he listens to our podcast, but you know, but we can put it out into the universe. You know, you never know.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I do really appreciate how you all are using your own art to support your movement. And I think that's really exciting and admirable.
Thank you very much. I'm going broke doing it. But, you know, I could also just like have a regular job and be ready to kill myself.
Yeah, I hear you.
I've done that. I've done that, and it's been torturous. So I'm trying to do this thing. I'm trying to like keep up the momentum. It becomes exhausting, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. Where can people find you?
Where can they not find me? I'm on Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr. I mean, come on. You can find all those links when I update the goddamn site at Akynos.com, AKYNOS.com, or just thebswc.org.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate this.
It was our pleasure. Thank you for joining us for yet another episode of the Peep Show podcast. I'm PJ Sage, and you can find me on Twitter at PeachSage.
And I'm Jessie Sage, and you can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual or at jessiesage.com.
We would like to remind you that we have a Patreon account and would appreciate your support. Please visit patreon.com/peepshowpodcast. Our music is courtesy of Joe Kennedy. The show was produced by Jessie and PJ Sage.
Signing off. Have a great week.